Okay. It says another method for solving systems of equations is elimination. Like substitution, the goal of elimination is to get one equation that has only one variable. To do this by elimination, you add the two equations and the systems together. So here are the 4 steps of elimination. Step 1 says write the system so that like terms are aligned. Eliminate one of the variables and solve for the other variable. Substitute the value of the variable into one of the original equations and solve for the other variable. Write the answer from steps 2 and 3 as an ordered pair and check. So there are several types of elimination problems that you'll see. Unfortunately, there's not one way that you can do all problems like this. It just kind of depends on what's given to you. So here's the first type of elimination problem that is the easiest. It says 3x minus 4y equals 10 and x plus 4y equals negative 2. So our goal with elimination is to eliminate one of the variables. So the first thing you always want to look for is 2 opposite terms. Does anyone see in this system 2 opposite terms? 2 terms that are opposites.
4y, negative 4y.
Right. Negative 4y and positive 4y. These are the types of terms that you're looking for. Because if you added negative 4y plus 4y, what would happen? They would cancel out. So what we're going to do is just add these 2 equations together. So 3x plus x is what? 4x. Negative 4y plus 4y is 0, so it cancels out. And 10 plus negative 2 is what? 8. If we divide both sides by 4, we now know that x is equal to 2. Now I can just plug into either one of the original equations to figure out what y is. So we'll do this second equation because it's a little bit more simple. 2 plus 4y equals negative 2. So I just replaced x with the new value 2. Now solve for y. Take away 2 on both sides. Divide by 4. So y is equal to negative 1. Now we're going to check. Okay, you only really need to check your answers in the equation you didn't use to solve for the second variable. So since I used this equation to solve for the second variable, I really only need to use the first equation to check my answers, because that's where I'm going to check my mistake, find my mistake if I made one. So I'm going to do 3 times 2 minus 4 times negative 1 equals 10. So 6 plus 4 equals 10. Is that true? Good. So I know for sure that I got that question right. Okay, let's try it again. Here's another example. Y plus 3x equals negative 2, and 2y minus 3x equals 14. So the first thing you're always looking for are opposite terms. Does anyone see any opposite terms in this problem? Right, 3x and negative 3x. So I can go ahead and just add these 2 equations together. Y plus 2y, 3x plus negative 3x, cancels out. Negative 2 plus 14. So if 3y equals 12, then y is 4. Now I'm just going to plug in 4 to one of the original equations and solve for x. So I'm going to do the first one since it's a little more simple. 4 plus 3x equals negative 2. Take away 4 on both sides. 3x equals negative 6. So x is negative 2. Now I'm just going to check my answers with the other equation. So I'm going to use the second equation to check my answers. 2 times 4 minus 3 times negative 2 equals 14. So that's 8 plus 6 should equal 14. Is that true? Yes. So I know for sure that this is the correct answer. So make sure when you're checking that you're using the other equation. If you check your answers with the equation you just used to find y or find the second variable, you're not going to catch your mistake. You have to use the other equation. Okay, so that's the first type of solving systems by elimination. This is the easiest type of problem when you're already given opposite terms. When you turn to the back, you can see there's 2 other types of problems. So let's talk about the first other type of problem. It says when 2 equations each contain the same term, you can subtract, and in parentheses I want you to write add the opposite. Because subtracting is the same thing as adding the opposite. 2 plus 2 is the same thing. 2 minus 2 is the same thing as 2 plus negative 2. So you're going to add the opposite. You can subtract one equation from the other to solve the system. To subtract an equation, multiply one equation by negative 1, then add. So let's see. If we have the equation or the system, 2x plus y equals negative 5, and 2x minus 5y equals 13. The first thing you should always look for is still opposite terms. Okay, you're looking for 2 terms that when you add them together will cancel out. However, in some problems, like in this one, 2 opposite terms are not present in the equation. If you don't see 2 opposite terms, you want to look for 2 terms that are the exact same. So do you see 2 terms that are the exact same in this problem? Yes, 2x and 2x. If I added them the way they are right now, they would not cancel out. 2x plus 2x is 4x, so I'm not eliminating anything. However, I can easily change one of them to a negative by just multiplying the whole equation by negative 1. So when you have 2 terms that are the exact same, you're going to take the second equation and you're going to multiply the entire thing by negative 1. So the first equation is going to stay the exact same, but the second equation is going to be opposite because you're multiplying it by negative 1. So negative 1 times 2x would be negative 2x. Negative 1 times negative 5y would be positive 5y. And negative 1 times 13 would be negative 13. Now that I've multiplied by negative 1, I can solve it just like I did the previous 2 examples. So I can add these 2 equations together. So 2x plus negative 2x cancels out. Y plus 5y. Negative 5 plus negative 13. Divide by both sides by 6, so y is negative 3. Now, just like last time, plug in negative 3 to one of the original equations and solve for x. So we'll use the first equation again. 2x plus negative 3 equals negative 5. Add 3 to both sides. And divide by 2. So x is equal to -1. Now just check it with the other equation. So I'm going to check it with this equation, the original one, not the one I multiplied by -1. So 2 times -1 minus 5 times -3 should equal 13. Does that work? Yep. So I know this is the correct answer. So in that problem, why did we have to multiply by -1? To make them opposite. Say it again. So I'm not saying now that you have to multiply every example by -1. It just depends on what the problem looks like. If you're given two terms that are the exact same, meaning when you add them they would not cancel out, that's when you have to multiply by -1. So here's another example. Okay, so what do you guys think we need to do? Do we do that in both equations? Since I see two terms that are the exact same, 3y plus 3y, I'm going to multiply the second equation by -1 so that I can eliminate those y's. So again, the first equation is going to stay exactly the same. In the second equation, all the terms are going to be opposite. So -2x times -1 is positive 2x. -3y times -1 is -3y. And -5 times 1 is positive 5. Now I can add them together. 3x plus 2x positive 3y plus -3y is 0, so it cancels out, and 5 plus 15 is 20. So if 5x is 20, then what's x? 4. Now that I know x is 4, how do I find y? So it doesn't matter which one you use. Use one of the original equations, not the one that you changed. So I'll plug it into the first one. 3 times 4 plus 3 times y is equal to 15. So 12 plus 3y equals 15. Take away 12. And divide by 3. So y is equal to 1. Now just check it with the other equation. So we're going to check it with the second equation. -2 times 4 plus 3 times 1 should equal -5. So -8 plus 3 should equal -5. Does that work? Yeah. So I know for sure this is the right answer. Okay. There's one other type of elimination problem you'll see. It says in some cases you will need to multiply you will first need to multiply one or both of the equations by a number so that one variable has opposite coefficients. This will be the new step 1. So in some cases, you will not be given either an opposite term or a same term. For example, if you have an equation that looks like this, or a system that looks like this, x plus 2y equals 11, and negative 3x plus y equals negative 5. First thing you always want to look for is opposites. Second thing you always want to look for is the same terms. Here's an example where there are no terms that are either opposite or the same. So let's think about it. Our goal in elimination is to eliminate one of the variables. I can choose whether I want to eliminate the x values or if I want to eliminate the y values. If I was going to eliminate the x values, what would the coefficient of the first x value need to be? Positive 3, right? Because positive 3 plus negative 3 would cancel out. If I was going to eliminate the y values, what would the coefficient of the second y need to be? Negative 2. Because positive 2y plus negative 2y would cancel out. So obviously there's more than one way I can go about this. Let's eliminate the y's just because it requires us to multiply by a smaller number. So I need this variable to have a coefficient of negative 2. So all I have to do to make that happen is multiply every single term in the second equation by negative 2. Again, the first equation is going to stay exactly the same, but every term in the second equation I'm going to multiply by negative 2. So negative 2 times 3x, negative 2 times negative 3x, 6x, negative 2 times y, and negative 2 times negative 5, 10. Now, just like I've done before, I can add them together. So x plus 6x is 7x, 2y minus 2y cancels out, and 11 plus 10 is 21. So if 7x equals 21, then what's x? 3. Now, just like before, I'm going to find y by plugging in x into one of the original equations. Don't try to plug it into one of the ones that you changed. Always plug it into the original one. It's going to be easier that way. So I'll use the first equation because it's a little simpler. 3 plus 2y equals 11. Take away 3 from both sides. 2y equals 8. So y equals what? 4. Now I'm going to check with the other equation. So I'm going to check with 3x plus y equals negative 5. So I'm going to do negative 3 times 3 plus 4 should equal negative 5. So does negative 9 plus 4 equal negative 5? Yes. Okay, here's the last example we're going to do together. Negative 5x plus 2y equals 32, and 2x plus 3y equals 10. So do you see any terms that are opposites that would cancel out right now? No. Do you see any terms that are the same? No. So what we needed to do in this situation is decide again, are we going to eliminate the x values? Are we going to eliminate the y values? There's no right or wrong answer. Sometimes one will be easier than the other, but really in the end it doesn't make that big of a difference. So in this example, let's eliminate the x values. So let's look at how the x values are now, right now. If we added them together, obviously they're not going to cancel out the way that they are. What would the coefficient of the x values need to be for them to be the same? 10. If they both had a coefficient of 10, would they cancel out? Negative 10 plus 10 would cancel out. So what do I need to do to the first x to get it to be negative 10? Yes, so I'm going to multiply everything in the equation by 2. Whatever you do to one term, you have to do to everything to keep the equation consistent. So 2 times negative 5x, negative 10x. 2 times 2y, 4y. And 2 times 32, would be 64. Now I'm not done yet because I still need to change my second x value to have a coefficient of 10. What would I need to do to 2x to make it have a coefficient of 10?
5.
Right, so I'm going to multiply the entire equation by 5. So 5 times 2x, 5 times 3y, and 5 times 10. Now I can move forward and add them together. Negative 10x plus 10x is 0, so that cancels out. 4y plus 15y is 19y. And 64 plus 50 . Anybody know what 114 divided by 19 is? 6. Very good. So my y value is 6. How do I figure out my x value? Right. Make sure you plug it back into one of the original equations, not to one of the ones that you changed. So we'll plug it back into the first equation. Negative 5x plus 2 times 6 equals 32. So negative 5x plus 12 equals 32. Negative 5x equals 20. So x equals Now let's just check it with the other equation. So we're checking it with 2x plus 3y equals 10. So that says that 2 times negative 4 plus 3 times 6 should equal 10. Or negative 8 plus 18 should equal 10. Is that true? Yes.